SarasotaVotes.gov.
Arts Access Florida makes content just for you. DIYs, book recommendations, calendared events, and local arts highlights. Follow Arts Access Florida on Instagram. Just search for our handle at Arts Access FL. That's Arts Access, AXISFL. That's where you'll find fun and kind of funny people. And thanks to Community Foundation Tampa Bay.
4 Florida men have been convicted in the plot to assassinate Haiti's president. Jovenel Moïse was shot dead in 2021. I'm Matthew Petty, and today on Florida Matters, live and local, we'll talk with 2 defense attorneys, one whose client was found guilty last week in a Miami federal court. Have you been keeping up with the trial? Give us a call. We're at 813-755-6562 or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org to join the conversation. Also this hour, the immigration detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz might be closing sooner than expected. Our own WUSF reporter brings us an update on the latest. And city leaders and law enforcement are tackling teen takeovers. 22 young people were arrested in Tampa last weekend. The charges range from fighting to drug and weapons possession. We get a glimpse into what can be done to give young people an outlet and keep them safe. And we want to hear from you. You can find out more about that and more on Florida Matters live and local after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping met in Beijing today. They discussed the war in Iran, global trade, and energy security. But as NPR's Tamara Keith reports, so far the talks between the 2 leaders haven't yielded any significant progress.
On Thursday, Trump and Xi held a bilateral meeting that for a time included CEOs from top U.S. corporations. Then in the evening at a formal banquet, the 2 leaders toasted each other and the relationship between their nations. Trump made clear he wants this visit to be the start of a longer dialogue.
Tonight it is my honor to extend an invitation to you and Madam Peng to visit us at the White House this September 24th.
Before Trump heads to the airport, the leaders are set to take a friendship photo and share a bilateral tea and lunch. No deals have been announced yet, but there's still time. Tamara Keith, NPR News, Beijing.
Israel is continuing attacks in Lebanon as Israeli and Lebanese diplomats head into a new round of peace talks in Washington today. NPR's Jana Raff reports Israeli attacks near Beirut yesterday left at least 22 people dead.
Israel issued new warnings that it could attack more villages in southern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley. Peace talks are expected to discuss a U.S.-brokered ceasefire in place since April 17th. Despite the ceasefire, the aid group Save the Children says an average of 4 children a day have been killed or wounded in Israeli strikes since then.
NPR's Jana Raff reporting. Closing arguments begin today in California in the federal civil trial brought by billionaire Elon Musk against OpenAI and the company's CEO, Sam Altman. Musk accuses OpenAI and Altman of betraying the company's founding principles, ones Altman helped to establish. Rachel Myrow with member station KQED reports.
After 3 weeks of testimony wrapped, the judge told the jury all the pieces of the puzzle are now in the box. The puzzle Elon Musk wants them to solve: did his fellow OpenAI co-founders abandon their duty to the nonprofit's mission while making themselves billionaires? Musk brought the lawsuit against OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and other co-founders, saying they stole a charity. They say they saved it. What this case doesn't address is that Musk just folded his own AI company, xAI, into SpaceX ahead of what could be the biggest IPO in history, and OpenAI is eyeing a public offering of its own at a similarly high valuation. For NPR News, I'm Rachel Myrow.
Stocks are trading higher on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow is up 357 points at 50,050. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive, with small business insurance for protecting a variety of business types with multiple coverage options, designed to fit business owners' needs. More about small business insurance is at progressivecommercial.com.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. Until Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa agree on their share of the cost of a new Tampa Bay Rays stadium, do not count on the state to chip in. That's the message from Clearwater Republican Senator Ed Hooper. The team has set a June 1st deadline for the city and county to approve more than $1 billion toward the $2.3 billion plan. On top of that, the Rays and Hillsborough College want $150 million to relocate the school as part of the stadium development on the Dale Mabry campus. But Hooper, the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, says that's not happening just yet.
The locals, Hillsborough County and the city, there seems to be some heartburn at the request, and until they resolve that, I don't think the state needs to be involved.
Governor Ron DeSantis reiterated on Wednesday that state money should not go to stadium construction. He also weighed in on rumors that other areas are interested if this plan falls through.
I know Orlando, they would plow a lot of money into this. There's no question Orange County would.
DeSantis and MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred appeared at the college in February in support of the Tampa plan. By the way, Senator Hooper is retiring in the middle of his term, and a local sheriff is resigning to run for that position. The Senate's top budget writer announced the decision in letters to the governor and his fellow senators on Wednesday. It's effective November 3rd, the date of the midterm elections. The 78-year-old Hooper's current term was not set to end until 2028. This move allows Governor DeSantis to call a special election to coincide with the primary and general election dates this year. Late Wednesday, Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nacco said that he would step down in November after 15 years on the job to run for the District 21 seat, which covers northern Pinellas County and southwestern Pasco County. I'm Craig Komp, WUSF 89.7 News.
I'm Jessica Mazzaros, a reporter here at WUSF. Part of why I work in public radio is how much fun I get to have playing with sound and sometimes music.
By the time I was age 6, I remember he had checked out a number of books on organ building from the library and helped me build a small little pipe organ in our basement.
And of course, the people I get to meet, like the organist at the Tampa Theater. Check out our arts coverage at WUSF.org.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty, and we're broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. Last week in a Miami federal courtroom, 4 Florida men were convicted in the plot to assassinate Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, who was killed in 2021. The case involves former military personnel, private security forces, political turmoil in Haiti, and a Tampa accountant whose attorney calls the case, quote, harebrained and unlike anything he's seen before in a federal court. I want to hear from you too. Maybe you've been following along with this case. Are you surprised by the Florida connection? And if you've been following along, are you satisfied with the outcome? You can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email floridamatters@wusf.org. Well, for more insight and analysis, we're joined by 2 defense attorneys, David Joffe. He's been working cases like this one for decades. David, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us this hour, Manny Perez, who was in that Miami courtroom where his client was one of those 4 convicted last week. Manny, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
David, let me start with you. You've defended complex criminal cases for decades. Were these convictions surprising to you?
You know, they weren't surprising to me. Now, granted, I wasn't on the ground or in the arena actually trying the case in court, but I think just the volume of evidence that the government was able to present during the 9-week trial was probably a bit overwhelming. They had individuals who had pled guilty, who were cooperating. The government was able to corroborate their testimony, not only with their own testimony, but also with physical evidence, receipts, telephone calls, emails, text messages, etc. And there was a lot of communication amongst the co-conspirators in this case regarding, their ultimate goal and or aim. I know during the course of their trial and reading some of the jury instructions, their position was this was just, free speech, and we were entitled to present our position, etc. And we were acting legally throughout this whole process.
Manny, I know you'll have a different viewpoint on this. You were in that courtroom as the verdict came down. What was that moment like?
Well, we were disappointed, but we have to respect the system and we have to respect the verdict. We were obviously very surprised with some of the convictions that arose from the trial. But as David had mentioned, the evidence in terms of what the government produces over a 9-week period of time, where they often take text messages that are out of context and they interrelate it with other communications, and they have all the resources in the world. Oftentimes, juries become overwhelmed with the volume of information and evidence that's given to them. From my client's perspective, it was a very difficult verdict because it carries a life sentence. My client is 62 years old. He has been in the security business for many years. What is incredibly unusual about this case, unlike any other that I've ever tried, is the number of confidential informants that were involved that the government considered to be rogue confidential informants. My client owned a small security company in Miami. He was approached back in 2020 by a person that was working as a confidential source for the FBI. My client believed that what he was doing was legitimate. He was then approached by a gentleman that was supposedly running for president, and asked to secure some independent security for him that was not from Haiti, because they didn't trust the Haitians.
Mm-hmm.
And once it got over there, it was literally hijacked by Haitian politicians, local polices that were bribed. The security detail for the president was bribed so that they would stand down. There was a real arrest warrant signed by a real judge calling for the arrest of the president, which my client believed to be true because he was relying on individuals that were literally former prosecutors in Haiti that assured him that this was a real warrant, and these former prosecutors were actually involved in the plot themselves.
Just to kind of break in here and just a little bit of clarity for our listeners, my understanding is your client, Antonio Intriago, maintains that he thought this was a security operation and not an assassination attempt, correct?
100%. In fact, we presented evidence that individuals were at the president's home minutes before the security people arrived. The security people, when they did arrive, said the president is dead. They left. There were individuals that we brought an eyewitness that saw 4 individuals leaving outside. And I think what we thought was going to be the most positive evidence for the defense was that we brought Dr. Emma Liu, who is an eminent forensic pathologist, that came in and said 2 of the bullets that were found in the president were implanted post-mortem. Mm-hmm. Those 2 bullets were the only ones that were linked to a gun that had completely lost a chain of custody for over 4 months, that the Haitian authorities produced to the FBI, that was linked to the security people. So we always felt that, we brought in a pathologist that said these bullets were planted into the president. But apparently, and as Mr. Jaffe will tell you, the conspiracy charges are, at least in the United States, are so broad and sweeping that often they implicate people that have minimal participation or
right. So lots of threads to unravel there. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but let me just reintroduce you here. We're talking with Manny Perez, who is in the Miami courtroom where 4 Floridians were convicted in the assassination plot on Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, who was killed in 2021. Also with us is David Jaffe, who's been working cases like this one for decades, also a defense attorney. I want to just read part of a statement too. This is a statement that FloridaMatters received from a lawyer representing a certified personal accountant from Tampa who pled guilty to conspiring to ship bulletproof vests to Haiti in 2024. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison, and part of the statement reads, Fred Bergman is a good and kind man who for years supported charitable causes in Haiti and made the unfortunate misjudgment of getting mixed up in some of the characters involved in the plot to depose Mr. Moïse. As he expressed to him in the court sentencing him, Fred deeply regrets shipping the ballistic vest and his actions in this matter as set forth in his guilty plea. He understands he should never have done it. And the statement just goes on to say This lawyer, in fact, goes on to say that separately, as a lawyer who has laboured on behalf of many in the federal criminal justice system for what is a long time now, I do not think I have ever seen a more harebrained, crazy conspiracy charged in a federal court than the one alleged here. It really is a unique case. You can't make this stuff up. End quote. David, let me come back to you for a moment. In complex conspiracy cases like this, how difficult is it for a jury to decide what a defendant truly understood about what they were taking part in?
Well, I think it's very difficult for a jury to decide. You have 12, individuals that bring their own life experience into the courtroom. Many of them take notes, especially in federal court. Most of them listen very intently. They pay close attention. And I think they bring their own life experience, when they come into the courtroom. I think that has a large effect upon them. They're presented with direct evidence, witnesses who come in and say they witnessed something, heard something, spoke something. They're presented with circumstantial evidence, which the government is trying to piece together, essentially pieces of a puzzle, so that at the end of the case, they can pull it all together and say, okay, here we go. Have an aha moment and convict these individuals. So it's very difficult for a jury to unravel some of these things. I was involved in a trial that took almost a year, and the jury was out for 6 weeks. One of them ended up having to go see a psychiatrist because it was so difficult and stressful for him. Yeah. It's very difficult, and there's a lot of pressure, not only to do what they believe is right. There's a lot of pressure to follow the jury instructions that have been presented to them. If they're not able to come to a decision, the court becomes involved and reads them an instruction that tells them, look, you're in the best position to make a decision in this case. A lot of time, energy, and money has been spent, et cetera. Go back and deliberate. And sometimes jurors, it's very difficult for them, very difficult.
Sentencing, of course, still ahead in this case. Briefly, Manny Perez, what are you expecting as that part approaches, and what arguments are you going to be making for your client?
Unfortunately, the sentencing is going to be very simple in this case and very short because it's a mandatory life sentence. So my guy has had an exemplary record as a human being. He's been an outstanding citizen. He's never had but the sentence will be a mandatory life because it involves the kidnapping and or murder of a person outside the United States, and particularly the head of state. So the sentencing is unfortunately going to be very simple, and the judge is not going to have any discretion. And I'd like to add something that David mentioned, which is in our case, the jury deliberated for 3.5 days, and when the jury came back, 2 of them were literally in tears. One of the men on the jury was in tears, and another woman was in tears. And we thought that it was that they were compelled to come to a certain decision that they didn't feel comfortable with. We don't know what it is because we obviously can't delve into that, but it was very visibly upsetting for the jury to come to the conclusions that they did.
Indeed. We're going to have to leave the discussion there, but thank you so much, both of you, for your expertise. We've been speaking with defense attorneys Manny Perez. One of his clients was one of the 4 Florida men convicted in the assassination plot on Haitian President Jovenel Moïse in 2021. Thank you so much, Manny. Really appreciate it.
Nice seeing you, David.
Thank you also to David Joffe, a defense attorney who's tried many of these cases in the past. David, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead on Florida Matters Live and Local, another high-profile story unfolding, in Florida. The immigration detention center known as Alligator Alcatraz is nearing its end. We'll talk to a WUSF reporter who's been covering the facility since last year. And a bit later in the show, teen takeovers. Maybe you saw that story unfolding in Curtis Hickson Park last Friday. What do you think about it? We're going to get some solutions and hear about some of the options available for teens in this community when Florida Matters Live and Local continues in about 10 minutes. Stay with us.
I'm Scott Tong, reporting this week in China, where my grandfather was arrested in the early 1950s when the communists came. A family story of the messiness of war and collaboration, next time Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Advent Health. A medical emergency can change your life, and Advent Health's ER experts have one priority: you. Because at Advent Health, second chances are just the beginning. Florida's leader in heart and stroke care. TheERexperts.com.
Have you thought about supporting WUSF beyond an annual gift? Your charitable gift annuity supports WUSF. Means steady income for life and potential tax advantages. It's a smart way to give back and reap the benefits. Call Scott Nolan at 813-974-8682 or visit WUSF.org/support.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. The controversial detention center in the Everglades, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, could be closed as soon as next month. Governor DeSantis praised the site for helping carry out President Trump's deportation agenda, but it's been a magnet for protests since it opened last July because of conditions in which detainees are kept and because of its environmental impact. WUSF's Megan Bowman with the Your Florida team has been reporting on this story since summer 2025 and joins us now. So, Megan, last week, the New York Times published this bombshell report, right? This detention center, which has been the center of so much controversy, could close earlier than expected. And a few days later, Governor DeSantis confirmed the story. What went through your mind when you saw those headlines?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, honestly, that was the first thing I thought. But, a few days before the story had come out, we had gotten an anonymous tip. And the person said, it's coming down from Tallahassee. This could be happening. And we were, trying to confirm that. And so when this article came out, I said, well, I guess they were right.
As we know, you've been covering this story for months. You've talked to activists, lawyers, environmental advocates. They all have a stake in the fate of this detention center. What were you hearing from them? And did this catch them by surprise?
Honestly, no. I don't think that the news was a surprise. I think the timing of it may have been a little surprising, but the content of the message, not so much. The environmental advocates have been fighting already, saying, hey, this shouldn't be here. So, when that news came out and they sent out some press releases of their comments, they were like, yeah, it should be closed. So that was kind of their take.
Megan, you talked to New York Times reporter Patricia Mazzei. She is the reporter who broke the story and published it. And in the story, she quotes a number of anonymous sources. Let's just hear from some of your interview with Patricia Mazzei.
So we felt it rose to the level of, even if the sources are anonymous, we have enough of them and we're confident in them. And people need to know that this is under consideration.
Yeah, so tell me more about what she said to you about the sort of reporting on this and going to those sources and then being at the point where the story needs to be published.
Right. So this is a really sensitive topic. So obviously the three anonymous sources she has are, high up, right? You have a former ICE official, somebody with the DeSantis administration, and another. And those sources are giving her what is being said. But Mazzei said people, especially in Florida, this is important for them to know because these are their tax dollars paying for it. This is what journalism 101 is, right? Hold officials to accountability. And that's exactly what this was doing. It's just, again, such a sensitive topic. I get it. They don't want to release their name and worry about pushback or retaliation.
Now, the detention center has been under the spotlight for quite some time, pretty much ever since it opened. Environmental advocates are worried about its impact on the ecosystem of the surrounding swamp. Immigrant rights advocates, of course, concerned about the conditions for detainees. What did Mazzei tell you about how this place is being run?
Well, it has been difficult for all of us to get inside those gates and find out what is actually going on inside. Even in Mazzei's story, none of these sources, again, were willing to share their identity because it is so sensitive. Mazzei said she spoke with one vendor inside about what's going on. And, they told her, hey, we are concerned because they're not really in a place to push back against hearing this, against the state, because these are companies who have been vetted by the state to bring in disaster relief after a hurricane or something like that. Here's what she actually told me.
I asked the governor actually about this situation on Friday. He had an event in Miami and he took some questions, and I asked about the vendors saying they're not getting paid. And he directed the questions to the Florida Division of Emergency Management, which has still not answered our questions that we sent early last week about this situation.
All right, so it sounds like there's a bit of a cash flow problem for this detention center, but in some ways the governor has said, yes, it's closing, but been a little shy of handing out some more of those details.
Well, DeSantis has always said that it was going to be temporary. And recently he said it, quote, served its purpose, because 22,000 detainees had been through the facility. But attorneys fighting to close the detention center are kind of asking at what cost?
Yeah. Now, what do we know about who is still being held inside this detention center?
So from the latest ICE data, we know that there were about 1,400 detainees at the detention center, all men. Interestingly, they call it the Florida Soft-Sided Facility, not Alligator Alcatraz.
Doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No. But here's an interesting stat, though. 901 of the detainees are considered non-criminal at the Florida Soft-Sided Facility, and 811 detainees have no ICE threat level. So that leaves us kind of wondering, who are those 90 men who have no ICE threat and no criminal record, and why are they there?
Do we know where they're going to go after this place is closed?
That is a great question. No, at this point, no one really knows. I did speak with Elise Bennett, an attorney with the Center for Biological Diversity. She said she'd heard rumors that planes were coming in and moving detainees, possibly to Crome Detention Center, which is in Miami. But again, those are rumors that she heard, and at this point, we don't know for sure.
Do we have a sense then at this stage what happens with the environmental lawsuits and with the site itself once the tents and the floodlights and the fences are all packed up and shipped out?
Well, somebody will have to be responsible for the cleanup. I expect this to be discussed in court long after the gates of the detention center close and the generators are trucked out, whether it's new infrastructure that was put in there, how to get that out, or cleaning up any waste that was left, or finding out what was left. I expect we'll be talking about this.
Yeah, so what are you going to be watching for as the story continues to develop?
Well, kind of all those unknowns right now, right? What's going to happen to the people who are there? What's going to happen after the gates close, like you said? How is the cleanup going to happen? So those are all things we're looking at. We do have this podcast that we've put out where we have been researching this and the history of the location of the land for so long. We ended up with so much information. So you can really kind of dive into the rabbit hole to sort of see this whole thing unfold.
Now, Patricia Mazzei, in your interview with her, called this story one of the biggest single issues in the state of Florida over this past year. How big a deal, in your estimation, is this story for our state?
I think this has turned into a huge story. I mean, I think I was talking with you about it before, right? Like, I didn't know how big this was going to be when we started reporting this last summer. Mm-hmm. And it's just like everything that's happened, it's like, wow. And it keeps growing and growing and growing. And I think this has been a really big environmental story, a human rights story, financial story. I mean, it's hitting all your big goalposts on this. That's, I think, also why it's been so interesting for people to follow along and see what's going on with it. Also because it's so unprecedented, right? At the location, there was no infrastructure, and they came in, they built tents and kind of trucked all this stuff in. So it's just been interesting to see unfold.
Yeah, it's been a lot, and you've been there every step of the way pretty much.
Practically.
WUSF's Megan Bowman, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you can download Defenders of the Everglades wherever you get your podcast and watch Defending the Everglades Again, Megan's documentary exploring how the Everglades Detention Center awoke a decades-old environmental fight. You can find that on WUSF.org. Well, coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, did you read the headlines about the so-called teen takeover in Curtis Hickson Park last Friday? What do you make of this incident and the arrest? Next, we're going to talk about youth mentoring and positive activities available to teens in Tampa Bay. I want to hear from you as well. You can weigh in by calling 813-755-6562 or emailing FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Florida Matters Live and Local continues in a moment. Stay with us.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. The war in Iran will have many effects, seen and unseen. One of them will be a challenge the U.S. military has long faced, the lasting toll of war on those who serve. Mental health and suicide remain urgent concerns for service members and veterans. So what can be done to better support members of our military during and after battle? A special edition of The Middle from Kenosha, Wisconsin, next time.
Join the conversation on The Middle tonight at 9 on WUSF.
Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard in Tampa, offering hands-on learning sessions in their wellness kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more and see the schedule at adelaide.com.
This is WUSF, your spot for local healthcare news. Read more at wusf.org/health.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Video footage from a Tampa police officer's body camera caught a chaotic gathering near Curtis Hickson Park last Friday night. The event has been labelled a teen takeover that eventually got violent, according to police. They say multiple fights broke out, some spilling into nearby streets and disrupting traffic in downtown Tampa. Tampa police arrested 22 people, mostly boys younger than 18, on charges including affray, drug possession, and resisting law enforcement. 13 of them were 15 years old or younger. And following the incident, community leaders and the police department filmed a PSA to parents urging them to be more cautious with their teens.
Keeping teens safe doesn't stop when the school year ends.
Which is why we need you, the parents and guardians, to step in and step up. Your involvement can make all the difference. Know where your teens are, know who they're with, and talk with them about making safe choices this summer.
Well, joining us now to talk more about the teen takeover trend and how community leaders are working to mentor teens in Tampa Bay and some of the safe activities available for teens in our region. Freddie Barton, Executive Director of Safe and Sound Hillsborough. Freddie, thank you so much for coming back. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Also joined by Jamal Jefferson with the City of Tampa's Parks and Recreation Department. He supervises the city's Teens Leading Change program. Jamal, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
And also with us is Taisha Robinson, Regional Vice President of Boys and Girls Club, Tampa Bay. Taisha, thank you so much as well.
Thanks for having me.
You can join the conversation too. What do you think about this incident and this teen takeover trend? What about the police response? And what positive activities for teens are you seeing in your neighborhoods? You can call us 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So I want to ask you basically the same question. Let me start with you, Freddie. What did you think when you saw the headlines and watched the news footage about this incident in Curtis Hickson Park last week?
Of course, because we work with young people who unfortunately are in the juvenile justice system. So, of course, the first thing on my mind was, well, we're going to start working with some more kids. We're going to have an influx of kids into our caseload. We've seen that these takeovers have been happening over the last 5 to 6 months. So it's not something that just started, and it's not just limited to our area. It's national. And so it made a whole bunch of questions pop back in my head. What are the kids doing all at this one place? Do parents know where they are? We know that there were several firearms that were recovered. So what are we doing to address that issue, make sure kids don't have their hands on guns? Mm-hmm. But then the larger issue, what are we doing to make sure kids have something positive to do so that we don't see these negative headlines? What are we doing within the city and the county, or what can we do to make sure that kids have something positive to do, that they've got some constructs around it, and that the adults are helping to make it happen?
Yeah. Taisha, what about you? What did you think?
I was shocked to even know that they were able to even come up with this on such a large scale. But it just reminds me that we think of these as teens. They are teens, but there's just kids who are still looking for a connection, looking for a belonging, and really looking for something to do. Mm-hmm. And so it's up to us as leaders to figure out what are those things that are going to draw them in and that are going to keep them from being distracted by the bad, but bringing the positive to their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jamal, what was your response?
My response was, kind of like Freddie and the young lady's same response, like, okay, what are we doing to really engage? I'm not placing blame on parents. I'm not placing blame on the teens or kids. My mindset is, okay, we see that they want to gather. Obviously, they are connected enough to be able to get hundreds or so to one area. Mm-hmm. Okay, how do we turn that into a positive? How do we develop activities and programs and truly engage with them in a positive way.
And are you talking with the kids you work with about last week's incident? I just kind of wonder what you're hearing from them.
I'm talking about citywide, but specifically for the kids that are in our program. We have kids. I had kids that are in my program who were there Friday night. And our simple question was, hey, what made you want to go Friday? Hey, Coach, I just needed something to do. I was curious. I see the flyer came to my phone that there was going to be a gathering at Curtis Hickson Park. I had a kid who said their parent dropped them off. Mm-hmm. So there's also a misconception that most parents don't know where their kids are. That's not necessarily true. Some parents assume that these gatherings, they're going to be supervised. They're in large enough spaces where there are adults on site that can maybe mitigate some of the tension and the friction. So the kids are just looking for something to do. Essentially, it comes down to they want to find something to do. Mm. We can either turn that into a positive and figure out a way to engage them.
Are they doing okay, the kids you work with? Because I imagine that might have been a little bit kind of scary.
It was scary, but it's not anything new. They've seen it before. If they've never attended one, they've seen it on Instagram, they've seen it on social media, so they kind of know what it looks like. They understand that there's a pretty good chance it's going to go left. Some fights are going to happen, a potential of a kid having a gun or two. But for the most part, they're not concerned about the safety aspect because they don't fully understand how dangerous it could get. To them, they're just hanging out and having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like what Jamal said. Here's the thing. I don't think any one of the kids that were there, over the 100-plus kids that were there, went there saying, I'm getting ready to get into a fight. Mm-hmm. I'm getting ready to create some drama. Every single one of them probably went with the notion of, I'm getting ready to go hang out, getting ready to go see some of my friends, I want to be on social media. But then tensions escalate. You get so many people in the area, and what Jamal said is right. There were probably adults that could have, or some parents that could have been there, that could have tried to, keep that down, keep the drama down. And I think that's why what's happening this Friday with Tampa Police Department trying to put together something just to show the youth, hey, if you do want to hang out, if you do want to congregate or put something together, we can make sure that happens in a positive way. So I think there was a wake-up call to us as adults or stakeholders in the community that this is going to continue. These kids are going to find a way to get together. And I always tell people, kids want something to do. Either we give them something good to do or they're going to find something to do. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be what we think or what we want to see.
Yeah. And sometimes, as you say, it may start some way and then it kind of develops into something else beyond what the teens were thinking.
Yeah, we can't be naive and think that these kids are going to make every single choice the right choice. We have grown adults who can't make every single choice the right choice. The science already tells us that the prefrontal lobe isn't developed until age 25 to 30. So you get a kid, 100+ kids in one area, and all of a sudden someone steps on their shoe. They don't have the coping skills right then and there to deal with that situation. So you're going to have cooler heads not prevailing, and you may have some issues come up. I do want to say that, yes, we did have 22 individuals arrested, but how many kids do we have out there?
130, I believe.
So 130, yeah, we were definitely surprised, shocked. It was disheartening to see, so many kids that did get in trouble, but there were a lot more kids too that didn't and that weren't involved in that negative behavior, that did leave early or had their parents pick them up and drop them off. So I think we have to also look at some of the things that are working. If given a proper construct, kids will thrive. They will be okay. We just have to have the responsibility and the accountability to make sure that happens.
Let me just reintroduce you real quick. We're talking with Jamal Jefferson with the City of Tampa's Parks and Recreation Department. Also with us, Freddie Barton, Executive Director of Safe and Sound Hillsborough, and Taisha Robinson, the Regional Vice President of Boys and Girls Club Tampa Bay. You can join the conversation too. What do you make of this teen takeover trend? Maybe you're thinking about the headlines about last week's incident in Tampa and kind of wondering what it is and what some of the options are for teens who want to get together but do it in a safe way. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Maybe you've got some suggestions for positive things that teens can get together and do. The number again, 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Taisha, I heard you kind of nodding in approval there a few times as Jamal and Freddie were talking about some of those positive things. If you were to steer these kids towards Boys and Girls Club activities, what would they be?
So glad that you asked. we gear a lot of our programming to teens because we've realized over times, we like to say in our clubs that kids vote with their feet, right? So when they're younger, their parents drop them off and they have to come to our club. So when they're older, they get the opportunity to come or they can stay home and do other things. So we have really been intentional about those programs. If they come to Boys and Girls Club, we have internship opportunities, so opportunities for them to make money. We have scholarship opportunities depending on what it looks like for them once they graduate. We have community service opportunities. So again, they get that connection with other teens at other Boys and Girls Clubs throughout the Tampa Bay area, Pinellas, Hernando, and then they can meet up and do positive things, give back to their community. Again, so those internships, financial literacy programs, scholarship opportunities. We have resources if they want to do like trades to pick up things, so connections like that. So lots of positive things that we would love them to come over and register at our programs and be a part of something positive.
Yeah, you can join the conversation talking about the teen takeover that happened in Curtis Dixon Park in Tampa last weekend. 813-755-6562 is the number. That's 813-755-6562. What do you make of this trend? Maybe you've got teenagers of your own. Are you talking to them about it? What are you hearing from them? Or maybe you're thinking, are there more things that need to be available for kids around the Tampa Bay region? Give us a call, 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Jamal, how important are parents, though? I mean, I know you say it's not all on the parents, but just kind of in making sure that young people in Tampa are getting access to safe activities.
It's extremely important. I encourage parents, and I know Freddie and all of us who are doing this work, encourage parents to communicate with your children, good, bad, or indifferent. Ask the tough questions, be inquisitive, connect with them onto how they're feeling about things. You know, a lot of our children, they want to be engaged. They want discipline. They want structure. They want activities. They want to be safe. I haven't met a kid yet that said, "Hey, coach, I want to come and get shot. I want to get shot. You know, I want to fight." They mostly want to be engaged in positive activities, and they want to have a good time in safe spaces. So the best thing that we can do, parents, adults, community leaders, is connect and engage with them. That's the most important thing, is to engage and communicate, ask the tough questions, be inquisitive, and kind of give them that guidance and structure that they're looking for.
Freddie, what do you think some of the solutions are? I know we were talking before we got on air. I mean, there's some things that may appeal to teenagers that could get them involved in something that's not going to kind of go off the rails.
Yeah, it's actually something that Jamal and I and a few other people we're going to work on. Here, I have to say this. You know, we had 22 kids that were arrested. I want to know, I would be interested to know how many people went to those 22 and say, what was going on in your mind? Why were you there?
Can I ask you about that too?
Sure.
Does that seem like a proportionate response from the police?
I think that the police did what they had to do. I mean, you hear about 100+ people that are in one area and fights are breaking out. They had to go ahead and just do something to stop it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we can't blame law enforcement for trying to keep the peace and try to keep the disruption down. The bigger question is, well, what caused it to happen in the first place, right? Kids want things to do, and we have to get to them and talk to them. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about, well, what programs can be put together, what messages can be put out, how many people are actually talking to the kids themselves to ask them that? So we're working on a project kids like 3 things: likes, views, and cash, right? So I'll throw food in there too, Freddie. Right. Well, they love school. Food. You know, they love food. Oh, food. It's school, they food. You know, so give them an opportunity to provide positive messaging. Let the kids drive those messages. They put together a successful and positive social media campaign driven by the youth. You come up with some themes, whether it's anti-bullying or gun violence prevention or mental health or, you know, staying safe, and let these kids put together 30-second, you know, TikTok videos that are linked to that. And the average 15-year-old in the state of Florida has anywhere between 200 and 400 followers that actively engage with any post that they make. Let's just say you had 100 kids that put together 30-second spots times 200 people that see it. Those are thousands of positive engagements out there every single day. Why not encourage that? Why not encourage young people to do what they're going to do anyway? They're going to post. They're going to go live. So give them an opportunity to do that. And we're going to incentivize them by giving them some funding to help do that, amplify their message. So hopefully we can get that off the ground within the next week or so. And the adults, our job is just to provide the construct. Everything else needs to be done for and by the kids.
We're going to have to leave the conversation there, but I want to thank you all for your insights. We've been speaking with Freddie Barton, Executive Director of Safe and Sound Hillsborough. Freddie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also with us, Taisha Robinson, Regional Vice President of Boys and Girls Club Tampa Bay. Taisha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Jamal Jefferson with the City of Tampa's Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you, Jamal.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're listening to Florida Matters live and local. More to come in a moment. Do stay with us.
Rabbit's trick, it backfires.
I'm Robin Young. Former poet laureate Joy Harjo collaborates with multi-Grammy winner Esperanza Spalding on a new album, and she gets to wail on the saxophone.
Joy will be doing some stuff that other saxophone players don't do. And if you open to what she's doing, it's like, whoa, I agree with that.
Music and poetry next time here and now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
If you want to know more about what's happening around you in 2026, subscribe to WUSF's Wake Up Call newsletter. It's your morning dose of the latest news and things to do. You can subscribe at WUSF.org.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Live Nation, presenting singer-songwriter Jason Mraz on his Still Yours tour this Saturday, May 16th at Ruth Eckerd Hall. Mraz is known for his feel-good songs and positivity. More at livenation.com. No matter the situation, SPCA Tampa Bay can help. Every animal, every story, every family. You belong at SPCA Tampa Bay, a key part of this community for over 80 years. Learn more at spcatampabay.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. We've got a great news team here at WUSF, and we like to highlight their reporting from all around Tampa Bay. In a moment, you're going to hear about how seagrass helps keep the ocean healthy and why murals make the city beautiful. But first, thousands of Ukrainian refugees have relocated to Sarasota County since the start of the 2022 Russian invasion. WUSF's Kathy Carter reports among them are two brothers who emigrated to Venice. Now, the siblings are featured in a production of Fiddler on the Roof, playing instruments they carried with them all the way from the war.
At Oslo Repertory Theater in Sarasota, 16-year-old Andrei Padkovsky and his brother Yuri, who's 21, greet each other in Ukrainian before rehearsal.
Героям слава. У мене все чудово.
For decades before the war, Sarasota County has been a hub for Ukrainians. With help from a family friend, Andrei and his mother moved to Florida 3 years ago. Yuri followed soon after. And the one thing they could not leave behind was their instruments. Andrei plays the violin. And Yuri, the clarinet. Before joining the show, the brothers knew little about Fiddler on the Roof, which centers on Tevye, a Jewish milkman and his family living in Tsarist Russia. The musical is set in a fictional village called Anatevka, which would now be present-day Ukraine. But for Andrei, its story of families forced to leave their homes is a familiar one.
When the war started, I was going to school, but teacher called every student and said, don't go to school. It's very dangerous to go outside.
Andrei was just 13 when the bombs first started to fall. At the time, Yuri was studying music at a university in the Czech Republic with their eldest brother.
And we woke up like at 5 a.m. and we were terrified. At the time, I was just checking news 24/7. I was calling everybody I know in Ukraine.
Peter Rothstein, Oslo Rep's producing artistic director, first discovered Andrei at the Sarasota Orchestra's Young Artist Competition. And then he learned his backstory.
And I thought, how poignant would it be for the fiddler, who's the central metaphor of our story, to be from the same piece of earth in which the story was set, that the Jews became refugees.
Both brothers say there are parts of the story that especially resonate. For Yuri, it's when Tevye's middle daughter, Huddle, prepares to leave her family for Siberia to join her husband.
And she say, "We'll never see you again, my father." So for me, I didn't saw my father for almost 5 years. I think this is the most heartbreaking thing to me.
Andriy says the song that most hits home for him is the musical's final number, Anatevka, where a Russian constable tells the villagers to pack all their belongings and go.
They say you have 3 days to leave your houses, sell them, and leave. For me, it was the same as the day the war started. They just came to my country. It's kinda was like, you have only a few days to leave.
But once rehearsal begins, the brothers are on stage and at home among their fellow artists.
All right, stand by, everyone, and you may begin when you're ready.
3 years into their new lives, the Patkovsky brothers say they're grateful to be here. And for Oslo director Peter Rothstein, that's another parallel to Fiddler on the Roof, which ends with Tevye's family leaving for America.
There's something incredibly relevant and current about the world we live in now. We have more refugees on the planet than ever before.
The UN Refugee Agency says at the end of 2024, more than 120 million people around the world were forcibly displaced. At the end of Fiddler on the Roof, the soon-to-be refugees face an unknown future. But for the brothers, the path is more clear. Andriy will finish his sophomore year of high school in Venice, and Yuri will begin a new fellowship to the Juilliard School of Music.
Kathy Carter with that report. Now onto those seagrasses. They're one of the basic building blocks of marine life on Florida's coast, and healthy seagrasses are the barometer of a healthy ecosystem. WSF's Steve Newborn takes you on a ride to see how they're doing.
The wind whips as our boat guns out of the Fort DeSoto boat ramp. We're taking part in the first mapping of seagrasses since the 2024 hurricanes.
Let's get out of here.
Whitecaps form on normally placid Boca Ciega Bay. The air smells of salt spray competing with the scent of engine fumes. Our destination is a cove somewhat sheltered from a nor'easter, cooling the heat of the late morning sun.
This is in southern Pinellas County, so the Skyway Bridge, as you can see, it is out behind me. And then, of course, St. Pete Beach is to the north of us, and then the city of St. Petersburg is to the northeast of us.
Chris Anastasio is the head water scientist for the Southwest Florida Water Management District. This is one of those rare days he gets to ditch the fluorescent office lights.
So we're here as part of what we call our field verification work.
And part of that work is getting wet.
You got the right idea. You just got to go straight in.
Anastasio comes up with a couple of seagrass samples with the melodic names of Thalassia and Haladuli. I took a bite of the Haladuli. It tasted a little nutty and a little salty. One is thicker, the other wispy thin. Environmental scientist Tara Harder peers down into the bay through a PVC tube. That gives them a preview before they videotape the seafloor.
So it's got a duct tape piece of plexiglass on the bottom. It's lovingly known as the seagrass hunter.
She then lowered another PVC pipe into the bay with a waterproof camera and videotaped the growth on the seafloor. Like most of Tampa Bay, this area got hammered repeatedly by Hurricanes Milton and Helene. Anastasio says these grasses can deal with the big storms.
Storms are kind of they're like fingerprints. They're unique. Every storm has its own set of impacts, and it's hard to just make a general kind of prediction on what you would expect to see. The one thing to keep in mind is that storms have been going on for millennia, and seagrass have been here for millennia. So these grasses have evolved.
He compares their role to that of a canary in a coal mine. That's why the Water District is so interested.
They're also very sensitive to changes in water quality, so they're an excellent indicator of kind of the overall health of an estuary.
Anastasio says seagrasses help clean the water and feed and shelter up to 75% of the region's famous game fish. Studies show seagrass is thriving in both Boca Ciega Bay and lower Tampa Bay.
Both of these areas have experienced a significant gain in seagrass over the last few years. In fact, we're at record levels of seagrass since we started mapping in the 80s. So this area here looks really good, and I think what we saw today was a confirmation that things seem to be doing very well.
One of the reasons is our drought. Even though that's not so good for grass on land, out here it's kind of a blessing. The lack of freshwater runoff increases the salinity they need to survive. The last study 2 years ago showed Tampa Bay has gained more than 1,000 acres of seagrass. But problems with algae clouding the water and bridges that block water flow continue to cause problems in some places.
Places like Old Tampa Bay continue to struggle. We've seen seagrass loss there, and is an area that we're working closely with our partners like Tampa Bay Estuary Program to come up with some potential solutions for that.
Those solutions could include keeping a lid on pollution and nutrients that flow into the water. Now that they've got the data, they'll create maps that could be used to heal other seagrass beds that aren't as healthy as the one in Boca Ciega Bay.
Steve Newborn with that report. Now, there are murals all over Tampa Bay, and last month in Tampa Heights neighborhood, a new mural popped up on a wall outside the Rialto Theater with a really unique twist. The local community painted some of it themselves. WSF's Sky LeBron has more.
The Tampa Downtown Partnership hired local artist Dylan Perry for the majority of the work, and it was a big milestone for him.
This is my first wall in Tampa, officially, that I've had ever, so I'm really stoked on that.
It was also the first time he'd ever let the public work on one of his pieces.
I guess, how do you make it low risk enough that anybody at any skill level can participate and actually have a good role in this?
Well, I sectioned it off and here's blue, paint inside the lines. I dumbed it down, but also it's like, you make it easy. It's like, there's no wrong answer. Just throw paint around, we can fix it. We can paint over paint.
Alice Montalto was one of the Tampa Heights residents helping paint her neighborhood mural.
Having the community involved definitely brings that connection and warm feeling and neighborhood feeling to people and residents. And I think it would get more people to move in and want to participate in a community like this.
How do you think you did?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I say a 7.
No wall experience?
No wall experience. I think I did okay, yeah.
Which section did you do, if you don't mind me asking?
I did part of the gray blocking and a little bit of the blue blocking. And I drew a heart on there and then painted over it so that my heart will be in the community forever.
That's deep.
Yeah.
When I got there with one of my colleagues, Daylina Miller, by the way, shout out Day for getting some great videos and photos, it just looked like a big brick canvas with colors splotched all over it, but Dylan showed us on his tablet what the final product would look like.
This is the Grand Cathedral, the Firehouse number 5. These are both iconic buildings in Tampa Heights. And then we have the streetcar. The Armature Works was the hub for fixing the streetcars. We have a little gator there, kind of ode to the river, palm tree. We have a lily that's going to be going in this section here, and also this organic kind of flowy, because there's a part of the Hillsborough River that cuts through Tampa Heights, so we're kind of paying homage to that.
And at this point, you know me. I couldn't pass up a chance to paint a little piece of the mural myself, so I rolled up my sleeves and got to work filling in some of the crevices that were still empty.
All right, so you want me to do this right here?
Like all this here.
All right, I got you.
Yeah, I did.
I feel like an artist. This is impactful. This crack will never look the same. That sounds weird. I don't like that I said that.
I painted for about 3 minutes before my arm got tired going over the same cracks and seams. Shout out mural artists. That job is way harder than I ever expected. Then Day got a shot at painting too.
It definitely makes me feel like I'm gonna force people to come down and look at my handiwork. Look, I did this. Exactly. I mean, I did this little section, but.
And at the end, we got to show Dylan our addition.
How's it look?
Professional. Yeah. You're hired.
I feel like we changed the whole dynamic of this piece. Just with the small.
Is that a different green you just used? What's going on?
All right, we gotta go.
Kidding.
One thing's for sure, when I have kids, they'll definitely be checking this out, and I'll definitely be showing off the 3mm that their pops painted himself. Little Bartholomew is going to know that his dad is an artiste.
Sky LeBron there. You can check out more from our reporters on WUSF.org. That's our show for today. Next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, Black cemeteries are sacred spaces and also a vital link to history and identity. We'll talk with experts about the growing movement to protect them from neglect and destruction. You can join the conversation Monday at noon. Our executive producer is Grayson Doctor, producers Amelie Horace and Quincy Walters, engineers Jackson Hart, Blake Bass, and Gio Garvin. Jackson composed our theme music, Chandler Balcom handled the video today. I'm Matthew Petty, thanks for listening and watching, and have a fantastic weekend.